Hey everyone, welcome to the Main Cut. I am one of your hosts, Jade, founder of Main Hookup, and we're here today with my co-host Katanda, head of education and community.
Hi everyone, Katata here, as she said, head of education and community.
And I mean, today we are talking about something that's been a big topic for a long time, but black-owned businesses, specifically haircare businesses, selling. There's been like a few cases of them being sold, especially in the past few months, actually. But there always seems to be a big conversation about not so much the companies being sold, but who they're being sold to. And so we wanted to talk about it as there's been some really interesting acquisitions happening, and yeah, there's a lot to dive into, but everything from who they're sold to, what happens afterwards, what people think happens versus what really happens in an acquisition. And like how our perception of these things can really affect the business itself and how they sell afterwards. So super keen to get everybody else's thoughts on this. So also feel free to leave comments. We want to hear what our community thinks too. But speaking of acquisitions, I'd say the first one that's happened most recently is Carol's Daughter, which I think is an old school favorite now, has been bought by or bought, yeah, has been returned to the founder.
I like that.
It's been returned to the founder, Lisa Price. So she built Carol's Daughter and then I think sold in, I think it's either 2014 or 2015 to L'Oreal. And then in the past couple of months, L'Oreal has sold the company back to Lisa Price. And then there's been a lot of talk about it. I've posted about it as well online, but a lot of talk about how selling back to founders can really help rejuvenate a company, especially when people might have been disappointed by the sale or things that have happened since. Katanda, I know that well, I mean, you know more about this than I do because you've been on the inside in some companies. I've only been on the inside of tech companies, not actual like hair care brands, but there's loads of concerns that people have when a company sells, and I'm sure you've heard it all.
I've heard it all. I feel like Sunshine Anderson. I've heard it all before. And yes, there is always some interesting chatter surrounding that. Um, I worked for the company that Carol's daughter sold to in 2014. Everyone knows it's L'Oreal. And so I have worked very, very closely with Miss Lisa and with the brand. And so I do know, I don't know everything. I just know things that I was privy to on the testing and development side and working as a style squad member for the brand and testing with Miss Lisa in 2020 when we were testing from home and we made some, really amazing, put out some really amazing launches with that being one of the challenges we couldn't really test as we would have tested prior
Mm.
to. So I don't want to obviously I haven't worked for the company or the brand in quite some time. However, I'm very loyal and so I make sure I keep my proprietary information to myself.
I
But I
mean,
will, generally speaking,
yeah,
share the things that are public knowledge, of course. But what I will say is, Miss Lisa, even through that first acquisition to L'Oreal, she has been very, very, very hands on and intricate, not intricate, but hands on and integral in the everything Carol's daughter. So,
that's really interesting because I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that just because a company is sold doesn't mean that the founder has like fully, they don't disappear immediately because that would cause too many problems. That would
they do, but we won't talk about that either.
I mean, some of them, I feel like a lot of the time they're like contracted to be there for a certain amount of time before they can officially like disappear and say that they've removed themselves from the company. And some people stay beyond that, you know. And I think there's one of the misconceptions I think about selling is that a founder's like automatically they kind of sell and they just disappear, which doesn't always happen that way. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of talk around what happens when, like you say, what happens to the brand after they've sold, even when they're still there. And there can be changes. Of course, there'll be changes because it's in the hands of somebody else. But it's I think what's actually more interesting and more important is like what does that founder do after the sale? That for me anyway, I'm more like, what are they once they've sold? Oh, what are they then? What's the next thing that they do? What do they choose to do with what they've sold, and how do they then try and have an impact on the community in a different way? Because I don't think it's for everybody wants to own a company forever. So at some point they will sell, they will exit. It's just like, okay, how do we help founders once they've gotten to that point that they can also reinvest in their communities in a way that's really meaningful? And there are examples of that happening and that happening really well. Like Richelieu Dennis did that with Sheer Moisture. He sold to Unilever. I think it was Unilever, and then bought Essence, which is the largest media publication in the world for people of color. Bought Madam C.J. Walker's mansion and turned that into like its own like support system for Black entrepreneurs, and then launched like a venture fund specifically helping Black and underrepresented founders in the beauty space, like in the kind of beauty, cosmetics, food space. So like there are examples of founders exiting and then reinvesting heavily into the community, and I think that's what's important. That's just as important as who a company is sold to. But it feels like there's a heavy emphasis on who the company is sold to, but not what happens afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. There is always emphasis on who a company is sold to. But we're finding, as we've had some very interesting sells here lately, that some cells don't get as much talk on social media or as much buzz because it's not, I guess, feeding into, I don't want to say the negative side of things, but really it is because when black brands are acquired by larger companies, everyone gets mad in the black community. And I feel like it's more so with hair care products. And I understand some of the reasons why, but I also understand business too and reasons why brands are sold. And like you said, Jade, not everyone wants to own a brand forever.
Mm.
Some people may, but it's just not, you know, everyone's dream to hold on to and coddle a brand forever. And it's everyone, I think, that's in business, they're in business to scale and to grow and to get bigger. So sometimes that requires you to sell in order to do
Mm.
those things. And I can also say that, yes, typically from my experience, um, it is in the contracts that the, the owner, the founder, now the seller has to stick around for a certain period of time. Now,
Mm.
however you work that deal is on the founder. Um, and it generally happens that way, but there has been some founders that sell and they're in this contract and they dip out anyway,
Mm.
which is really not helpful to the brand because it's sort of like you're leaving your job, someone else has been hired, they typically ask you to train the next person.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that with a brand. Like you need to onboard everything and everyone, and you need to pass off, you know, the history and the knowledge and things like that to the next crew or the next team of
Mm.
people that will be leading and growing this brand. And so it's really a good idea to stick around for however long that deal is for. I can say that I just, this Lisa has so much integrity because she stuck it. She didn't just stick around for the contract term. I don't know what her terms were, but she stuck around and stuck it out until the day that they
Yeah.
returned it back to her. Okay.
Mm,
So that's been like 10 years. So that takes
mm,
a person of integrity. That takes a person of humility, because you have to humble yourself down a bit to now put your baby into the hands of someone else, even though, yeah, you're still in there running things to a certain extent. You still now passed it off to someone else that obviously has the final say.
mm,
And so for her to have done that says a lot about not only just her business, I guess, business skills and acumen, and her dreams of this baby and her love for this baby and
mm.
passion for it, but also her character. So kudos to Miss Lisa.
No, we love that, and I think, like you said, there's a lot of. I think there have obviously been sales in the past where not just like products have changed drastically, but also who those products target has changed drastically. And I think when you have history of those things happening, it then affects people's perception of what could happen next, even before it's happened, right? So I think for me, I can see how we're at this point where it's like, you have an entire community that when they see a founder selling, they're like, cool, who's it being sold to? Are they going to care about the community? Is this just going to be about making money? Are products going to drastically change to the point that they're not for me anymore? Those are all the questions that people have. Or some of the questions, there's probably plenty others, but some of the big questions that people have when they see that a company is being sold. And I think that like I said, there's a balance, right? There's a balance between, okay, once the founder has exited, what do they do next? Do they do what Lisa did and do they stick around and get to a point that they're able to reclaim the company and then take it to another level from there? Or do they do like a Richelieu Dennis, do they sell and then use this as a massive opportunity to reinvest in the community in a different way? Because I think that can happen, and that can happen from those two outcomes to me seem like hugely beneficial, even though they've sold. That's able to add a lot of value back into the community. And then you also have, this week there are two acquisitions that were announced this week. One is that Bread Beauty was acquired by the founder of Topicals, although it's through another holding company that she owns, the Cost of Doing Business. So they've acquired Bread Beauty, and so that is now a black-owned business being acquired by an incredibly successful founder, an incredibly successful black founder. I think she raised something like 10 or 12 million for Topical, so that's the most that any black woman has ever raised. And so, she's run an incredibly successful skincare range, now has bought a beauty, another a hair care range. And that's getting some attention, but I don't think I'm seeing it get anywhere near the same level of attention as, say, like the Sheer Moisture acquisition, or even the
Mael.
Carol Daughters, or even Mael. I feel like Mael's acquisition also gets a lot of negative press. I don't know so much why about the Mael one. I feel like people have mixed feelings about it, but there's a lot of energy and attention on the acquisitions that people feel don't reflect what should be happening, which everybody can have their own opinion. But when we see these incredible acquisitions like Bread Beauty being bought,
That needs to be celebrated more. Like,
yeah,
we should be hearing about that more, because this is what everybody wanted, right?
yeah,
It's one black, entity purchasing the other black entity. So we should be cheering, and it should be all over the social media streets and flooded, but you're barely hearing about it because I don't want to say you guys, but obviously you guys can I'm super passionate about this. So I told Jade prior to this, Jade, this conversation. I don't know if I want to have this conversation. I don't know if you can do it. So I'm trying to, keep it soft here, but I just feel like sometimes I'm gonna say we focus on the wrong things. Why are we
Mm,
not putting so much focus on this? Putting so much focus on, like, it should be I barely have seen it scrolling on social media.
mm.
I've seen it. Obviously, I first saw it on LinkedIn, which makes sense because it's business.
Yeah.
However, y'all talk about business on social media, and I've barely seen it. I've barely seen the Taraji P. Henson acquisition that
Mm,
you actually, well, a friend of mine sent it to me, and I kind of scrolled, but I didn't really dig in deep. But when you brought it to my attention today, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So I needed to do more research on it, but that's not all over the social media streets either. And Taraji P. Henson is a celebrity
mm.
that, she's not just a founder, but she's a celebrity founder.
Yeah.
So y'all love to talk about celebrity business. And no one's barely talking about this, but I think it's because, Jade, a lot of people don't realize that these celebrities are not full, they do not have full ownership of these brands.
No.
People just assume that they do because they're celebrities. And a
Mm,
lot of times they may not have any ownership. They may just have a licensing deal. And we're not
yeah.
just talking hair care brands at this point. We're talking like any type of brand, where they sell their name or likeness to a company so that they can use it to sell whatever.
Mm,
That wasn't Taraji P. Henson's case. I guess she was in partnership with this company. They actually have other hair care companies as well. But she just purchased it. Now she has full ownership. But y'all not talking about this. And I want to know why. And I want to comments why you're not talking about this so much. It's like a secret out there.
yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, I'll give the people online a little bit of credit because I feel like the Taraji one just came out, but I haven't heard much about the.
Days in. Like the ink wasn't even dry, and they were all over, the Mayel. They were all over the Carol's Daughter 10 years
Mm,
ago. They were all over the Main Choice, however long ago. Like
mm,
when it sells to the opposite race, every I don't know. I guess sort of like Morse code goes out because everybody knows about it immediately. So I don't want to say, I'm not going to give y'all grace because it has been 2 days. It's happened on the 8th. The first article that I saw was dated the 8th of April,
mm.
with WWD. So by now y'all
Okay.
should have been in these social media streets talking all about this. It again, sharing. It's like, woohoo! Oh my gosh, we finally did. She bought it back. So
Mm,
I know you guys were cheering for Miss Lisa when she bought it back. But that's because she did it the other way before, and y'all were trying to tear her down. Now she bought it back. She like, ah ha ha, laughing in y'all's face, like I got it back. So there's always a plan. It may not be the plan that we want to see, but she had a plan, and Taraji, that's a big deal.
mm. Oh, I think it's a big deal. Ownership is a big deal. Ownership is a massive deal. And I think one of the problems is that it feels like there isn't a lot of ownership in the black hair space when it comes to like our community actually owning and running the products that are then marketed to us. So that feels like a huge problem because it's like, who are the people behind it? Do they actually care? And we already know that there are loads of like, there have been a lot of products that have been created where they've had toxic chemicals, toxic things in them that do nothing good for us. A load of things that are happening in the world of extensions at the moment, and albeit there are brands that are coming out with products that are a solution to that. I think there's Kind Hair that I think is being built up in Europe, and there's Doso Beauty, which I think is like really big in the States, and it's like getting bigger in the UK and in Europe as well, in terms of like creating non-toxic hair extensions.
And there's the, is it Ruka or Ruka or
Yeah, and
Ruka?
Ruka Hair as well. Ruka Hair, yeah, they've also launched a range of non-toxic hair extensions too.
And there's another one here in the US. It's called Slay Hair, I believe.
Okay,
Slay. Yes.
so we're now seeing more black-owned hair care extension companies trying to solve that problem. But that problem wasn't created by products that we had created. It was the problem was created by like, you know, extensions are a massive, they're a massive business, like billions, like millions, if not billions, spent on extensions every year. And so what's happened is we've seen it happen where products have been created, they've not been created with care, they've been created in a sense that they can make money, and they've been marketed to us, and then we have used them. They cause all kinds of havoc, all kinds of health problems. And so the level of trust with companies that are founded, or not companies that are founded, with companies that are run either by like the massive entities, like kind of like the P&Gs of the world, like, the big entities, or they're run by people that don't look like us. There's a huge amount of skepticism whether that company is still going to care. So I understand where the pain comes from, but we also, I think it's important to remember that selling is a part of the process, and it's how can we create more opportunities like Lisa's? How do we create more opportunities like Bread Beauty? How do we create more opportunities like um, Taraji's, so that we can improve the process versus tearing companies down and tearing founders down when they sell? For me, it's more so, okay, how do we change this narrative so that we're getting companies more so in the hands of people that care, and we're helping founders to exit, and like I said, in a way that allows them to reinvest? How do we focus on the solution instead of just tearing things down when we see that there's a problem, or we're worried about how the brand is going to change and what could happen thereafter? Because I think one of the biggest questions that people have is like, oh, formulas will change, things will change, the products might not be for us anymore. When actually the reality is that formulas change all the time behind the scenes. So that's not necessarily, if it's changed, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, how has it changed? That's a question. How has it changed? And has it changed in a way that is like beneficial for our hair type? That's a question to ask. But it changing isn't like, people don't just come up with one formula and keep it the same for 10 years. It's amended and adjusted and tweaked and changed. I don't know how often, because it's not a side of a business that I've been in, but it happens as a brand grows, right? So it's not reformulation itself that is the problem. It's, if it is reformulated, is it improved? Has it improved? Is it delivering better results than it was before? Not so much, oh, the formula's changed, so the company doesn't care anymore.
So that's a, I've been on that side a whole lot with formulas and product development and reformulations and things like that. Formulas change all the time for various reasons, not just because the company has sold. And so these are the things that the average person or consumer does not know and would not know. If you're not working in the business on that side of it, you wouldn't know. Formulas are changed because ingredients get blacklisted and it's no longer legal to have that in
Mm.
your formula anymore. There's a blacklist that comes out every year,
Ah.
sometimes twice a year. And those ingredients have to be removed, not just from the black company that sold to the other company, from all products. Like, it has to be removed because it's no longer legal to be within that formula
Mm.
in any hair care products. And it happens across the board: hair care, cosmetics,
Mm.
and skincare. But these are the things that people don't know. And these obviously are the things that we're not just out here talking about, like the labs, the chemists, the regulations, and MOCRA, and all these people they're not just out here telling the consumers, "Oh yeah, you guys," because it's not really beneficial for you to know those things. It
Mm,
is beneficial for you to know that there has been some changes or some formula change, and from my experience, when formulas are changed, they're either changed to make sure that they're at parity with the previous formula or better. And
mm,
usually we're making it better because we always have, new technologies that come out. We always have new discoveries. So
mm,
it's always typically better than before. However, we are, what is it? What did I
habit.
say? Creatures of habit. And so we don't like change. Change is difficult in every way. Change is difficult with formulas. Change is
Mm,
difficult. You have to move from one city to the next or one state to the next. People do not like change. So
mm,
I get it. But there's nothing constant in the world. Everything is constantly changing.
mm,
So there has to be changes. I won't go too far into that, but yes, Jade, you're right. Formulas are changing, and you guys a lot of times don't really know it or aren't really paying attention unless there is like some big to do surrounding it, when there is an acquisition or a sell, or when there is some buzz online saying, oh, they changed this formula and now my hair is turning green. Like, formulas are constantly changing, and there's a lot of science in beauty.
mm,
Let's forget the science part of the beauty, which it has to change. If you think about food,
mm,
a lot of times food changes too. Like, I like, Beyond Meat burgers.
mm,
The recipe for Beyond Meat burgers, if you take one back a year ago and look at the one now, there were some changes, but we didn't hear about all the changes on the Beyond Meat burgers. We hear about them when it has to do with black hair care. It's just very interesting to me. So yeah, that's one thing. So changes are necessary, and it's not only just when a brand has sold or one has been acquired. I think that I've always wanted to figure out a way to sort of like relay information to the consumer
mm,
that would help put you guys at ease, but it sometimes makes it more complicated than it does help. So I think that's why a lot of it is kept under wraps. It's not hidden. So if you don't go looking for it, you
mm.
may not find it, but it's not hidden either. If you do go looking for it, you will find it. So that's the thing. And again, I'm super passionate about these things. Formulas have to change. I will say, to your point, Jade, there aren't a lot of black owned hair care um, companies out here, but I will also say the ones that are, you guys don't really be checking for them. Like, I can name off three right now. Luster's, black owned for generations and generations and generations. They are still 100, 1000% black owned. It's
Mm,
still family owned.
mm,
All of these generations of the Lusters work, operate, run this business.
mm,
That's your pink oil moisturizer and the S curl and like all of those products. Lusters, black owned, and they don't get a lot of buzz. Nobody's really talking about them because I don't know why. Because it's what you guys want. They're black owned. They're black manufactured. They're right.
mm.
Everything is black, black, black. And just y'all just like, I don't know, straight away. Is it because it's not popular? Sometimes I think you guys tend to latch on to what's popular. I love me some pink oil moisturizer. I always have as a little girl. My mom used it in my hair. I will still use it now. I used to actually be on the style squad for Luster. I know some of the family members, the daughter that runs it right now, Teresa B. Luster. She's absolutely amazing, and they're still all hands on
Mm,
and not really hearing a lot about Luster products. But you should, because it's what you want. They're black owned. The other one would be this is more of a professional brand, but Dudley. Dudley has
mm,
your, well, I don't know if it's forbidden now, but Deli has all of the black products, the relaxers, the hair care products, hair care, shampoos, conditioners. They have hair color, the Matador Red from back in the day. They have hair sprays, full line of hair care products. Um, Professional line. I feel like sometimes the brands don't get as much of the backlash because us professionals understand,
Yeah,
product.
it's a different audience, and also the audience of professionals is smaller.
Yeah, but also that if you're going to the salon or going to a stylist to get your hair done, and
Mm.
you're saying, "Oh, don't use that whatever on my hair because they sold and I don't want it in my hair anymore." Y'all don't think, "Oh, don't use that on my hair." Just sold it. I guess it just depends. But the other one would be Bronner Brothers. Bronner Brothers is black owned. They've been around forever. They still run the hair shows that are they're popular, but it's the iconic hair show that's been running for years, and they have it twice a year. Um, they have a plethora of hair care products, but y'all don't be talking about Prada Brothers much either. So I'm just saying, if you have to support what you want, and you say that's what you want, so support those companies that are black owned, black operated, black manufactured, and you don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing if that's what you really want. But I don't really think that's what people really want. They just want to have something to talk about or complain about. But that's just me.
I think like I have mixed feelings about this because it's coming from a place of, as a founder, completely understand, like say, that people want to sell. People build companies not to keep, most of the time, not to keep them forever. People build them because they believe in what they're producing, but eventually they're like, if I invest my time and energy into this, I'll be able to do even more after I've sold because I'll have more time back, I have more capacity, and you want like the financial support of the exit as well. And it definitely financially it puts the founders in a better position. Well, providing that they haven't sold off so much of their company that they barely have any left by the time they get to an exit, right? But if it's done really well at an exit, they then have the financial capacity to do more. So I don't think, like I said, I don't believe that selling is like the issue. It's how do we, like you say, how do we make sure that communities are investing in black owned and underrepresented hair care brands? How do you then get to a point that founders are in the same position that Bread Beauty Supply was in, where there's actually another founder who understands the audience, the demographic, the product itself, because maybe they're not a user of Bread Beauty, but a user of black hair products, so that they understand the ethos that the company has been built on, so that when that sale happens, that's not only like a sale in terms of, oh, that financially benefits the founder, it's also like a win for the company because it's in the hands of somebody who truly understands the industry. For me, it's how do we, again, like how do we create more instances of that? And that doesn't mean that people have to be torn down when they don't fit that bill, because there are other things that can be done thereafter. Like I love the fact that Richelieu Dennis went on to buy Essence. I don't know what people think of Sheer Moisture now. I used to use their products years ago. I don't really use them that much anymore. But the fact that after that, a sale of that magnitude, you have to bear in mind that people didn't, I feel that it was him, his mother, and his business partner that came together to create the business. They couldn't get investment, they couldn't get business loans, they were immigrants, they just couldn't get access to that. They were very limited, and so they, to my knowledge, owned the company because they couldn't get those people coming in. They made their money themselves. So if you think about it, they had that level of ownership, which is probably why the exit was so significant for them.
And their exit actually too was a little quiet. It took a while for people to catch on to that one.
Mm,
Um, so it was very smartly done, I'd say. Um, but yeah, like you're saying, he is still doing things in the community or for the community. And the question is, if he hadn't sold, would he have been able to do all of the things that he's done?
Mm.
I don't. I mean, I don't know, but probably not on the levels that he has. He's actually acquired, um, like media companies that was not black owned.
Mm.
They're not
Mm.
black owned. So, and again, a lot of people don't know that. For example, well, we won't get into the media stuff because that's but if you guys do your research, you will find that he's done some pretty amazing things after he sold his haircut brand. So
Mm.
I agree with you. It has to happen for various reasons, and when you take, um, a great win like that and put it back into the community, and even that being, you have teams of black people that you're hiring to work these brands, like you're putting it back in the community in a way that we can only benefit from it. That's the
Yes.
other thing. When brands are acquired and sold, you guys sometimes don't understand there are a lot of black faces still behind those brands working at those other companies. So when you're not supporting those brands, these people, they may not have a job after
Mm.
a while. And these are black, faces and people that look like us that are working behind the brand, but you guys don't support it, and now they're out of jobs. So just because a brand is sold and acquired does not mean that there aren't black people behind that brand running it still.
Mm.
So that's I think a lot of times people don't think about that either, and that's something because everyone's not made to be a founder or owner. Like we need employees to work these brands, and we would much rather the employees look like us to work these brands rather than someone else, because we can ensure that, like, I was working in the testing center behind these brands, so I had a voice there, a huge voice there to say, like, no, this ain't working,
Mm.
and oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Mm.
So you have to keep that in mind, and I just think that sometimes we don't look at the bigger picture. It's always a bigger picture to these things.
Yeah, there's a long term game, but I think that also is very dependent on the founder as well. Because there are lots of things that Richelieu Dennis and, his co founders could have done once they exited, but they consciously chose to reinvest in the community, you know, and
He could
even
have took his money and went and bought a small island, and we would never have heard of it. He did not have to do what he did.
no, it's true. And even Olamide, the woman who owns Topicals, she didn't have to go on and create the the holding company, and she didn't have to go on and buy Bread Beauty. That's again a conscious decision to buy another black owned hair care brand and work on taking it to the next level. Like there are founders who want to do that. There are also founders that don't and will not do that.
Mhm.
And I think there's a level of accepting that not everybody is going to go on and do that. But for those that do want to, and for those that have that aspiration, how do you support those companies, and how, again, what do we have to do to create that ecosystem where we're able to build up those companies so that they last? And I think what seems to happen right now is that there's an assumption that all sales are bad. I think that's like the biggest issue, is like the assumption is that all sales are bad. And it's like, it's not that a sale is bad. It's because there's historically been so many issues with products, like I said, either being designed for us, but they are like absolutely toxic and not good for us at all. And we can't undo that history that has happened. Or there's examples of there have been bad sales. Like there have been bad sales in the past, and I think all of that past is then influencing what people believe will happen in the future, or what's happening right now. And actually, that's not the case. It's almost like, when And we all know there's at least one person in either our friendship group or our family who was like a menace when they were a child, right? They were just the ones causing all the problems.
It wasn't me.
But there's always that one person who was absolute, like they were a terror, and then they mature, they become a different person when they're older, but people are still treating them as if they're going to be a menace as an adult, and they're like, no, 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 I was a child, I was being stupid, and now I'm an adult acting like an adult, right?
Yeah.
And it feels a bit like that. It's like the history in the past is now causing a lot of people to believe that any current acquisition, if it is not a black owned business buying another black owned business, then it's automatically going to be a mess. And that's not necessarily the case.
It's not necessarily the case.
What we have to do is think, okay, if they've sold, what I would do, and this is just my opinion, to each their own, I'd be like, okay, they've sold. I'm then looking to see what they're going to do next. I'm more interested in saying, okay, they've sold, they've exited, great. Okay, so what will happen with that company, and what are they going to do next? That's where my interest lies, because I'm like that they now have the power to do something. So what, if anything, are they going to do with that power and with that the position that they're now currently in? Because there can be positives that come out of a sale, even if the sale goes into hands of a big corporate. There can be positives that come out of it if the founder turns around and does something with some of that money and invests that into the community too. So how, again, I think it's about people asking different questions when sales happen, you know, and it's not just about, like I said, not just about who it's being sold to, but what's being done after. What is being done after, if anything? And those, I think, are important questions to ask too. I do love seeing black businesses being acquired by other black businesses, because I think that's an amazing transition. Once upon a time,
Yes.
that wouldn't have even been possible because there
Yes.
weren't enough of us with that kind of capital to be able to do that. So I love seeing that Bread Beauty has now been acquired by two women that understand the hair and beauty industry. Two black women that understand the hair and beauty industry. I love to see that Taraji P. Henson has bought and reclaimed her brand. I love to see that Lisa Price has bought and reclaimed Carol's daughter from L'Oreal. I love seeing that there's now more ownership, because with ownership we can only assume that there will be a greater sense of care and due diligence to the community that hasn't always existed. So I love to see that. That's kind of like ideal scenario. But if they sell and then they reinvest, that's still a positive. Because by some people's standards, if to sell to an organization that is like a massive entity or not black owned, if that's like a failure, then some people may consider that Richelieu Dennis had failed. But if that's the standard that we're holding every founder to, but I could never say that that was a failure. You bought Essence. And I would argue that Essence has been getting better and better and better since it's been in his hands.
I would never say anyone that has sold their business is a fail.
Mm.
Just because, I mean, you're not you build this brand, you build this business, you build this customer base. You're not obligated to keep this business forever. So just because you want to sell doesn't mean you failed. You actually win. Like these are multi-million dollar deals these people are selling for. That's not a fail. To me,
Mm.
that's not a fail. A fail is, there are many other failures, but not a failure. That is not a failure by far.
Mm.
And I don't know. Again, I am super passionate about this, but also I usually am on the opposite of what everyone else thinks because I have been behind the scenes and
Mm.
because I I have been a business owner. I can't wait to sell CJ Beauty Group because I'm out. Okay, I don't want to do no more testing. I don't want to do no more. I'm out the door. I'm gonna take my money and go. But no, in all seriousness, I'm a cheerleader for people that are able to do that because not businesses. Let's just talk about failures.
Mm,
It's hard to build a successful business,
mm,
especially in this climate, in this
mm,
day and time. It is super hard. Look at the stock market. Everybody's failing. Like, it is hard. So when you have taken, I don't know, your $5, your $500, your
mm,
$17, and built this multi-million-dollar company, and you people are coming to you to make, like, hey, let me take it off your hands, and
mm,
you're turning that $5 into 700 million or whatever. That is not a fail, and people need
mm.
to change their mindset. It's not a fail, and I get it. I've been a in this beauty industry all my life, literally. I've been a hairstylist since I was born.
Mm,
I went to cosmetology school in high school. I love
mm,
hair. I love black hair. I love all hair, but black hair first and foremost. That's how I started learning.
mm,
That's what I how I learned to perfect my craft.
mm,
But I am on the other side of this. By any means, I want all the black founders to be able to sell to whomever they're selling for or selling
mm,
to get their payoff. Like, it's blood, sweat, and tears in the game. And
mm,
to be able to sell, and I mean, you're changing lives of your family, you're
mm.
changing generations. This is like generational wealth we're talking. I'm not mad. And I'm just gonna end it on that note.
No, I agree, and that's one of the things again that I'm really interested in seeing in the industry is how can we get to a point where the hair care industry is helping people to create more generational wealth, and exits is one of those ways. And I think what the issue that people have is it feels like an exit largely, let's say there's a founding team of 3 people, it immediately feels like those are the people that benefit, and it's like, oh, what about the community that helped this brand become sale worthy, right? And again, that's where it comes into what do the founders do after. But what you have is you now have, in an ideal world, 3 people that are then in a position that if they want to, they can reinvest in other people. Some people just become like silent investors. They don't go
Yeah.
on to do more massive ventures. They go on to say, okay, well, 80% of this is going to be about me and my family, 20% of it is going to be reinvested into other people that look like me. But you don't hear them talking about it. They're silent. They just send the check. They find the people that they want to invest in, sorry. They write the checks and they mind their business.
Yeah.
And I think there's this, again, another perception of if it's not public, they're not doing anything. And that we operate in a world where the internet is the internet, social media is social media, and there's almost this expectation that because we have access to more information than we've ever had before, that we have access to everything, but we
Yeah.
don't. We have access to what people want us to have access to. And some people are
Mhm.
very private. Some people are like, I spent 10, 15 years in the limelight running my business. Now I don't want anyone to know me. Now I want to disappear to my little island in the middle of nowhere and live a very quiet life. And it's
That I'm gonna buy when I get acquired. So what am I like?
and that's what I mean. I think there's this perception of if we can't see it with our eyes and we don't know about it, that it's not happening. And there will absolutely be the Richelieu Dennises and the Olamides that go on to make these massive acquisitions, and we see things very visibly. And then there are also founders that are just behind closed doors being like, I've sold, I'm going to reinvest in my family and reinvest in my community, but quietly. Or they might become like, I don't know, the chair of a charity, and they might give, I don't know,
Mhm.
X amount to different charities every year. There are different ways to reinvest and give back. And I
Mhm.
think what we have to be cautious of as a community is not passing judgment when people have done something in a way that we may not have done it had we been in that position. I think being curious is the best thing that you can be. It's like, ask why. Be like, okay, hardcore ride or die. I would sell. I would have sold my business to this person. I would have sold it to a Richelieu Dennis or somebody that understands the industry. Fine, but if you can find out why they've done it the way they've done it, or even keep an eye on them and see, okay, what are they going to do next, if anything, that open up the curiosity versus the judgment. I think it's fine. Like, curiosity is great. It allows us to almost come together to say, okay, why don't we like this particular thing? What can we do about it? Curiosity still creates a sense of togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas criticism and judgment creates very much a like us and them, and it creates
Yeah.
separation within our community. And we don't need separation. We actually need unity to change these things and to create the outcomes that we really want to create. You need togetherness, because what we need right now is to build up enough people that have that fluidity and that income to go and make these acquisitions, and that can't be done alone. We need to do that, and we need to have that togetherness. So I think, again, for me, it's more stepping into curiosity versus judgment, and saying, how can we then, like, what can we do to create those systems that put founders in a better position to exit really well, and then go on to do other things that they can do for the community. But ultimately, that's down to them at the end of the day, because you can't force people to. You can only hope that they will.
I love that. Curiosity versus judgment. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's important. It happens in a lot of other spaces as well. I don't think this is like just unique to the hairspace, although there is a lot of judgment in the hairspace, regardless of whether it's about founders or just about the way that people do things in general. I think anything that involves looks, in all honesty, there's going to be judgment. I think all industries, anything like hair, beauty, skin, anything that involves fashion, clothes, anything that involves the way that you look and the way that you present yourself,
Now, Jade,
I feel like there's a heavy.
I will say that's the only example that I have. Well, I'll say it because I'm always saying all the things. I think it's more in this hair space. So
Mm,
you mentioned fashion.
yeah.
So I think it's specific to this hair thing, and I feel like that's a whole other deep rooted thing that maybe we can have another conversation on. But this hair thing is like sacred to us. Sort of, that's why Beyonce calls her brand sacred. The hair to us black people, particularly black women, it's sacred.
Mm,
Like, our hair is everything. So I think that's why there's more judgment around that, because it's
mm,
like the hair for us is everything. I mean,
mm,
it's our crown, and I get it. But we have to do better, and we have to give, like you said, it's amazing to have the curiosity, but we need to scale back on some of the judgment.
mm,
Um, and we have to cheer our people on whether they sell or not. Like, they have built this company. Everyone loves it. So we
yeah.
need to cheer them on for that. And then when they sell it, now everyone's upset. Like, you don't, if you're not an entrepreneur, and particularly in that space, you don't know what it takes to build these brands.
Mm,
It's not easy for these founders at all. And so, just to sort of like shun them because they chose to sell, I don't think that's cool. So we're not being supportive as we need to be. We need to continue to support them because, like you're saying, these people go on and they do other things. They may become silent investors. They may sit
mm,
on boards of new founders and
mm,
young founders that aspire to be like them and do what they did, and they're investing in them, maybe not monetarily, but
mm,
they're investing their time, their knowledge, their expertise. Like,
mm,
there's a lot more to it than that. So in order for us to continue to build these types of founders and these multimillionaires in this space, but just in our community in general, we have to be more supportive and stop judging when they choose to do the opposite of what you would have done with your company that you don't even have. So there's that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, this is a great topic. I am trying to be on my best behavior this week. Hopefully I have been,
No, I think
because you never know what comes out of my mouth. But
no, there's a lot to unpack, but I do think the big thing is trust. The big issue that people have is that they distrust the larger entities that buy these companies. Because if there was a sense of trust, there wouldn't be an issue. That's the difference, is that when a black founder buys another black owned company, we immediately trust that they're going to do right by the company. Whereas there is an immediate sense of distrust to these massive entities. They're like, oh, will it still be a great product? Will it change? Will there be like, again, crappy ingredients more likely be like kind of get into the product? There's all of these things are to do with trust. That's what it is. It's distrust. They don't, as a community, they don't trust. We don't trust the massive entities to do right by us. And I get it because, like I said, it's like historically that has been the case. A lot of this is about, I think, trust and perception. And it's how do we change those two things? We can't undo the past, but we can change the future and make sure that the future is better. So, what is it about the decisions that we're making, not just that founders are making, but also as consumers? What decisions are we making in the way that we treat founders, in the way that we talk about products? What are we doing now that's helping or hurting those brands, and helping or hurting their chances of improving after an exit? I think those are the kind of questions people need to ask themselves too.
man, this topic, you keep talking and I keep thinking of more things. Like, I don't know. It's just trust, or the lack thereof, is a huge factor. But once again, the trust is there in other, but you don't trust with the hair. Like, I just, and that's the other thing. You have to trust the founder.
Mm,
Trust the founder. The founder is not going to sell their brand to just anybody most times.
mm,
They want to look for the right deal for their brand, for their baby that they've grown and spent blood, sweat, and tears building. They're like, a lot of times the negotiations and the like, there's several opportunities a lot of times for these founders to sell. So
mm,
they go with what is the best fit for their brand, what is the best fit for their vision for their brand,
mm.
moving forward. So you have to trust that the founder is going to do the right thing. Yeah, you might not trust the people that are on the other side, but again, the founder typically is there for a period of time before they actually exit the door. And in Miss Lisa's case, she never exited the door. She stayed there to make sure that they were doing right by her brand. So I just think that it's just a, I don't know. It's just a topic that it's not easily, how can I say? It's just not an easy topic.
Mm.
And I understand from the consumer side, but also, since I have the other side of that, like, I'm on the other side and I know how these things go, how it happens, what happens behind the scenes. I can agree with that, because there are things that are in place. There are reasons why things have to happen, whether if this founder sold or not, they would still have had to do some of the things that they're doing um, after the sale. And it's just, when you're not privy to all of the information, you can't really judge, which is why we should not judge at all.
Mm.
We can't judge people. We can't judge because we don't know all of the information. And there's no way that you could unless you're there. Like, and these founders, I feel, I am very empathetic toward them a lot of times because they can't say things sometimes.
Mm.
They feel what they want to say. They can't come in them comments and pop off at y'all and this hair grease over here that y'all said the formula changed. I changed the formula 5 years ago and y'all didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like there are a lot of things that can't be said and that don't know. So I just I don't know. I hope we get past this. I hope we learn from the Bread Beauty Supply acquisition to the cost of doing business, and we celebrate those things more and tend to talk about those things more rather than talk about the other acquisitions that don't look like that particular one. So
Yeah. Like I said, it's a big topic, and I think it's a complicated one because the past has been very muddy, and we can't pretend that there haven't been bad experiences with brands. But again, it's how do we create the future that we want to see, and how do we make those decisions in terms of the way that we operate and can work with companies now that can affect the way that they build in the future. But would love to hear what other people think about this. I feel like this is one that lots of people have something to say about.
oh, they're
So
gonna have a lot to say.
again,
I hope y'all
kind.
still like me after this.
All we ask for is peace in the comments, please. We don't need World War III in comments. Just it's okay to be opinionated. We can still be opinionated and be kind. It's fine, you know. So yeah, would love to hear what other people think about this in the comments. And if there are any other examples of acquisitions, whether they're ones that you feel have gone well or gone badly, feel free to mention them as well. We've mentioned maybe 4 or 5 on today's podcast, but I'm sure there are others that we didn't have time to talk about. So yeah, and links to any articles that give details about them, that would be super interesting as well. And as always, if there is anything else that you are interested in hearing us talk about, then let us know too.
Yes, let us know.
But again, a thank you to everybody who has listened from beginning to end. If you found this interesting or you enjoyed this, then also please share it with other people. Sharing is caring. We're really interested in reaching as many people as we possibly can. So like, share, comment, and subscribe, because that will help you make sure this is in your inbox every week. And yeah, like I said, we're looking forward to hearing your comments, and we will see you on the next episode.